Good evening, Pretend Sports Nation, Pretend Sports Globe. Up here on PSBN, it is I, Psych Manders, with me as always, Mal Padiros. Mal, we have been decking the halls, we've been setting out the banquet tables, all to celebrate our defeat of the cowardly Lord Gobbleton this year. How are you doing, sir?
Well, I am overjoyed at this wonderful season. I am thankful for all of you Pretend Football listeners. And I am most thankful to you, Psych, for sharing the airwaves with me as we dine on the descendants of Lord Gobbleton. It's going to be a great week for us.
Indeed, may they all fill our plates and end up filling our stomachs for the coming time. However, in the meantime, as you know, Pretend Sports Globe, we are PSBN 1, orbiting your world at 1,000,000 miles an hour, and we have some Pretend Sports to get to. So, Mal, I will cede the floor to you.
Well, it's like we've been told that you play to win the game. That's what we learned during our second year of Pretend Broadcasting School. You put your best foot forward, you field a full roster, you see what comes of your hard work. Or you could just not. Let's see what happened in the waiverless bowl. Coach Eric, and you're still on mute, began his march towards the NJC FFL playoffs during Week 11 and had to face off against the stumbling Unicorn Death Squad. Menzies' mute men were led in battle by the fantastical foot stylings of Austin Eckler, who scored 38.5 points, and Jalen, all I do is hurts feelings, who scored 32 more. Good performances from Jalen Waddle and Michael, don't call me Mike, Williams, hoped to overcome the goose egg laid by Aaron Jones and a stinker from A.J. Brown. Poor Coach Ramona. It's always a good week when you outperform your projections, but it would have been really, truly, astonishingly helpful to field a full lineup. Sure, Justin Herbert scored a clean 38.1 and Run CMC scored 21. Yes, full Nelson Aguilar beat his projection by 4. But of the 1,347 players in the NFL I counted not on an NJC FFL roster, why on earth did Coach Ramona decide to start Salvon Ahmed, yes, that is his name, Terrace Marshall Jr., yes, this man is named after a porch, and the Rams defense, who didn't even play, for shame. Perhaps spend some of those pretend bucks on actual players, Coach. In the end, it was a no contest for the Magoo Mutes as they cruised to a 144.15 to 112.7 victory and take one more important step towards the playoffs. The victory sets them up nicely at 5-6 in 7th place with a game against the suddenly surging 51ers. Death Squad can only wonder what could have been, virtually eliminated from playoff contention and tied for butt-naked last place. They have a matchup against the also lowly Funky But Lovin', who are also showing signs of life and determined to play spoiler from here on out. Disappointing game for Coach Ramona. They get absolutely smoked in this one, but kudos to Coach Eric. Despite not making any waiver moves, still currently holding on to one of those last playoff spots.
Yeah, there is, of course, the ever-present blind man's luck, I suppose that we can say. Sometimes if you cover your eyes and cover your ears and just walk out in the middle of a Newark intersection, sometimes you do live.
I mean, that's true. But look, I'm not here to crown Coach Eric Menzie. He's done nothing to improve his team this entire year. It's literally the same bag of people that he drafted, and sometimes that's all you need to do. But sometimes you catch a bit of good luck. I mean, in this particular matchup, 3 players for his opponent's team did not even play. That's not good pretend football. That's just flat out luck.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I wasn't going to put a put a sticker, a pin, if you will, in his cap. But we've seen this from the likes of Coach Eric Menzi before. He does tend to just set it and drive, let it roll, and see what happens.
Well, I mean, it's worked out for him so far this year. He's holding on to the second to last playoff spot. There's still some movement around him. He could still miss the playoffs, but like we talked about last week, he's got a few very easy games still on his schedule. So I think he's got a good chance to make the playoffs, but he's going to have to ramp his game up if he's gonna take it any further.
Absolutely, I do agree with you there. However, if you would like to take a trip into the Medical Bay Mall, you can see all of the festivities that I've festooned the bay with.
Ooh, let's listen.
Indeed. Well, but before we get to all the holiday fun, on my operating table in the Medical Bay tonight is the focus of my standard opening philosophical query. What happens when the unstoppable force meets the unmovable object? Well, here the remains lie before me, and so we shall engage Psych Scalpel. The tombstones from PLP shuffled like a zombie horde into the King of Limbs' royal field, determined to keep their momentum alive. They managed to rack up 2 wins after bouncing back from a tough loss to the Vagina Flowers in Week 8, and boy, did they come to rumble. The charge was led by Miles Full Throttle Gaskin with 17.1 points, and that easily beat his projection of 9.7. Not far behind was Smilin' Travis Kelsey, putting up 16.3 points over his projection of 16.1, but that's when things took a dark turn. CD, Cranium Destructed Lamb, smashed up against the brick wall D of Cot Call. That's a 1-800-MED-FUNG, if I've ever seen one, people. From that point, it seemed like the Knights of the King of Limbs just held everyone back. Dak Rubber Arms Prescott only managed a 4.8 points out of projected 26.6. And with performance like that, Christian Kirk was praying for something to catch. He squeaked out 3.5 points out of a possible 11.9. Despite the gritty performance of the Cleveland D, which put up 16 ever-so-brave points out of the possible 16.6, it seemed that the dead men were doomed. Well, despite Lamar Jackson's pleas of, no, really, it's not COVID, it's just a sickness, just like a really non-COVID one, and not being allowed on the Royal Field, Coach Kylan managed a stunning victory. The Patriots D were the bannermen of the Knights. They scored 38 points out of a 16.7 projection. Chief Gronk make 'em big play with 10.1 points out of a projected 8.3. And Joe I'm in the Mixin commanded a tangy 24.3 out of 15. Rondale in the midnight hour, he caught more, managed to somehow, and I'm not quite sure how he did this, scored 15.3 points on catches. Again, I'm not sure how he did that, but he was projected to score 10.8. And indeed, the Knights of the King of Limbs just let the tombstones throw themselves against the wall, and they just mopped up whoever was left standing. It was a bitter, bitter loss for the tombstones. Looking for all this reason in all the rhyme, I can only look towards the tombstones bench and hear the bench blues moaning and groaning. Now, while Derek Carr rode the pine with 10.7 points, and Devonta Bad Bones Freeman even managed to 17, those 2 players wouldn't have made the difference, not even close. It's just a tough pill to swallow as the tombstones hit the road with the L, and the final score, 130-84, Knights of the King of Limbs victorious again. Wow, what a, just an amazing Iron Curtain-like defense that the Patriots D managed to score Coach Kylan there, Mo.
Yeah, they were dominant in this performance and really were the lifter that got Coach Kylan over the top. The Tombstones shambled into the wall repeatedly and could do nothing to do it, falling nearly 60 points off of their projection. That is an abysmal performance. And on the flip side, you've got the Knights who scored almost 28 more points, and that's without their quarterback. That is a fantastic performance by Coach Kylan. He has to feel very good about it looking ahead to the rest of the season.
Absolutely. I think that's going to give him a swell going into the the ever looming playoffs. Right now, I mean, Knights of the Kings of Limbs have been playing fantastic pretend football as of late.
Yeah, absolutely, and they are rising in the ranks. They have currently clinched a playoff spot. They are tied in effect with the Cumberland Crew for the top in the Death of the Dinosaurs division. But this loss could become quite dreadful for the Tombstones. I mean, yeah, they're in fifth place, and they're in no real threat of not making the playoffs at this particular instance. But they have to win the games. These big games that are coming up, because at 6-5, if they stumble two, three more times on the way out, they could see the likes of the South Sharpsville Gravy Legs or the Heartbreak or even You're Still on Mute climb ahead of them, and that would be devastating for them to be where they have been all season long, to end up missing the playoffs. It's not over for them yet.
Indeed, but as you say, you got to win those games. I mean, despite this obviously being a something of a come from behind victory, but as far as that playoff picture goes, it's true. You stumble once, you stumble twice, and suddenly you're in these must-win situations, and they are just nerve-wracking to be in.
Yeah, and it's funny. I was just looking over the Tombstones schedule. The games that they've lost, right? They've lost against the Heartbreak, the Death Squad, the Uramies, the Vagina Flowers, and the Knights of the King of Limbs. And in every one of those games, they almost didn't come to play. I mean, they got blown out by the Uramies, which is great game by Coach Catherine. But every other game, they didn't even score 100 points. If you're going to have that kind of up and down in your scoring, that doesn't bode well for the remainder of your season.
Oh, most certainly. And to say nothing of some of the upcoming games that the Tombstones are going to face. I mean, next week, they face the Luxacs. That's going to be a very, very important game for the Tombstones. And especially if they're still down. I mean, I was told that C.D. Lamb's brain actually came out of his head, so I'm not quite sure if, and he's been a keystone on the Tombstones offense.
Yeah, absolutely. But, I mean, they are all zombies, so, I mean, putting a brain back in is not necessarily an impossibility. But, I mean, coming into this week, right, they played against the Knights of the Kings of Limb. You mentioned he has the Luxacs. The 51ers, they look like they want to actually win football games now. And he gets to finish the season against the Pickle Boys and the Cumberland Crew. That's not an easy road for Coach Scott Martin to have to navigate. I'm concerned. I'm like as high as I am on the You're Still on Mute, Coach Eric. I'm feeling a little iffy on the Tombstones' chances.
Yeah, that's just a very tough end of the season. Again, it's just those easy games. You cannot drop them. You have to win them. And now increasingly the Tombstones are approaching that sort of situation where they must win against teams that have rightly defeated almost the entire league during the season.
Yeah, it's gonna be a wonderful ending of the season. We've seen some amazing things these last couple of weeks. Funky Butt Lovin'. They were 0-8 and now have won 3 consecutive. The 51ers, they were 1-8, and they have won 2 consecutive. And then you have the other teams on the other side of that, right? The Rainbow Unicorn Death Squad have losers of 7 consecutive games. Shooters Giggity, They were 6-1 at one point. They've now lost 4 consecutive. It's amazing what's gone on, but we're seeing teams go from the highs of the highs to the lows of the lows, and there's still a lot of football to decide what's going to go on in the playoffs in this NJCFFL.
Absolutely. Check the waiver wire, check your players, and also, if you're sitting on a fat stack of cash and also sitting on a fat stack of losses, maybe spend some of that money.
I mean,
you know what I mean?
I mean, maybe not the worst idea. But peruse the free agency line when you're eating up your gobbleton. Be sure to share this wonderful time with your friends and family. I'm here with Psych. We have some freeze-dried cranberry sauce that I believe just made it up here. That's always great.
Sure, and again, thank you for to Emlon Usk for sending all that stuff up on his Dragon rockets.
Yeah.
Yeah, just I mean, look, you've got to make some sacrifices when you live in deep space, and we're still slaying Lord Goblins, and we're still celebrating our people's victory over the hated turkey race.
Indeed, and I couldn't have said it better. Cheers to you and to yours. Enjoy some time away from the gridiron, but not too far, because as you all well know, Syke and I are right around the corner with another week of pretend football.
And if you stumble, we will be there to shame you. So, from all of us here at PSBN, thank you for tuning in, and this has been Pretend Sports Now. Happy Thanksgiving.